Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, mori mori wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Good Pods, wherever you find your podcast. We have two wonderful guests for you today. Victoria Hudson will be here to celebrate Dear Mousse, Horseplay and Homophones. And Shevonica M Howell will be here to celebrate her many, many books. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Abigail's Dragons by Patrick Matthews. Abigail's Dragons is about a girl who wakes up in a cave and discovers that she has a healing magic. She's told that her magic is growing, that it will turn her into a monster if left unchecked. She is not alone in the cave. There are other kids, also with magic, who are kept asleep. Though she's only 11 years old, she dedicates herself to protecting them, healing them, and draining away their magic to keep them safe. But what if she's been lied to? What if her cave of healing is actually a prison? How can she save the sleepers when she doesn't even know how to save herself? Find out by picking up your copy of Abigail's Dragon by Patrick Matthews. It's a wonderful middle grade novel you and your kids will love. And it's a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Snoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, and lots of noodles. The hilarious new book from our friend Stephen Joseph. Out of a world where crankiness reigns and cars run on sauerkraut comes a new invention, the Snoodomobile. It's the brainchild of Herbie Snooderman. Now cars are powered by noodles, and the delicious aroma produced fills everybody with happiness. Only one person does not appreciate the success of Mr. Snooderman's invention, Sour Cruderman, the brains behind the once popular Krautmobile. But when Cruderman decides to seek revenge on his business rival, the unexpected happens. After all, when cars run on noodles, anything is possible. The latest children's tale by author Stephen Joseph invites readers of all ages to enter a world where imagination is king and even the crankiest person can find happiness. Get your copy today. Snoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, and lots of noodles by Stephen Joseph. Joining us right now from the beautiful state of Maryland, our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new book. It's called Dear Mousse, Horseplay and Homophones. Please welcome to the show, Victoria Hudson. Hey, Victoria, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really confused because I thought this was a story about a moose, but it's a story about moose, Mousse, and I'm confused already in a wonderful way.
Thank you. Well, it's hopefully not too confusing for readers. I actually wrote this book. My son was the inspiration for this book. My younger son has special needs, and he struggles with the English language and writing in particular. And we were reading a book one night, and we came across a homophone, and he got very frustrated because he thought he understood it, but he didn't in the context of the book. And just to kind of alleviate his concerns, I said, well, there's also a moose who loves to eat moose. And he thought that was funny. And so that was kind of the genesis for this book. And that was actually several years ago. I just published it recently.
So remind us what the definition of homophone is.
Sure. So a homophone is two or more words that sound alike, but are spelled differently. So you have bear and bear, hair and hair. One obviously B-E-A-R and then B-A-R-E and then hair, H-A-R-E and hair, H-A-I-R. So those are just words that sound alike, but mean very different things. And not just kids get them confused. Adults do too, frequently, especially online.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I don't have a lot of hair on my head, but we have a lot of hairs in our backyard. So
Right.
I can relate. You mentioned that your son has learning difficulties. One of the things that I've become aware of here on the podcast is that a lot of the kids who have trouble that have the label dyslexia, it might not be that they have they don't necessarily have a challenge reading. They have a challenge reading English, because English is a challenging language. We have 26 letters that stand for 46 or 48 different sounds. There's a problem with that equation.
Yes, there is. It's a really difficult language. One of the things that surprised me about this book is that I got a lot of feedback from people who were just learning English as a first language. And they were like, oh, I'm going to buy your book for me too, because, I'm getting it for my kid, but it's also going to be helpful for me as I'm learning English. So that was a market I hadn't even considered, but I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, not only is, in one word, PH means one thing, and in another word, it means something different, but also take the word read. It's read or it's read. It's present tense or past tense. And I know I subscribe to a couple of folks on Instagram who are English language learners, and they just are just making reels about, hey, I'm from Russia, and I thought that meant that, but now I'm finding out it means something else. And why is English like this?
Yes. Yeah, it's really complicated. And this is actually, I'm hoping to have it part of a series. Mm-hmm. So I have this book, and then I've written two others that are also part of the series. One is called Moo Moo Nay, Here Comes the Day, and that's about onomatopoeia. And then the other one is called See Here, which is basically it hits all the different sounds that letters make. So it's not just C is for cat, but it's C is for charts and cinnamon. And so you're hitting all those different sounds, because that's also really confusing for kids. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, absolutely. I got to ask you, the onomatopoeia. What does that mean? You're gonna make my head explode here.
Oh, sure. So onomatopoeia, it's actually a Greek word, and it is the naming of a thing by the imitation of a sound. So, for example, like a lot of birds have actually gotten their name because of the sounds they make. Like a chickadee says chickadee, chickadee, and so it's called a chickadee.
Okay.
But it's also words like bam or slam or pow. And so Moo Moo Nay takes readers through the day as they wake up. So you hear the hiss and vroom of buses and the click-clack of a train. You hear roosters crowing and cows mooing and all of that. So.
Yeah. Neat. I'm wondering, is English the only language that has all these crazy rules / not rules?
I can't say for sure because I'm not a linguist, but I would assume so, because we're such a hodgepodge of different languages. Mm-hmm. We borrow from so many different languages that I think we end up with these idiosyncrasies just as a result. We don't have any hard and fast rules like other languages do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is frustrating, and it's fascinating how some kids can kind of grasp, okay, it's different, and and they can learn. But there are other kids, like we were talking about earlier, kids who have been labeled that just can't seem to grasp that, or they can't grasp it as easily. And one of the things I wish folks would change is the way we present that, and instead of making the kid feel like, oh, the problem is with me, helping kids understand, like, no, the problem's not you, the problem's the language. Your brain is perfect, and the reason you're having so much trouble is that your brain is perfect, and your brain is expecting things to work out the way you were told it was going to work out, and when it's not, it's like it doesn't compute, and that's not your fault. It's the language's fault. But we can figure out a way to help you work around that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that really, for me, was the motivation for writing this and the other books in the series. I wanted to take it out of the classroom a little bit because, especially for my son, learning how to write in the classroom, which is great, it's kind of limiting. I wanted to make it fun. One of the series that we like to read, of course, is Dr. Seuss. Mm-hmm. And I love Dr. Seuss because as an adult, it's fun to read. It's silly and it's fun. And I thought, well, what if I could combine the silliness of Dr. Seuss with the type of lesson that you would typically learn in school that's just, very straightforward and kind of dry. Maybe that would make it less intimidating, and he would not only learn to read better, but he'd maybe love to write, which is another goal of mine. I want people to love wordplay as much as I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where did your love of wordplay come from, do you think?
I've had it my whole life, really. I work in television, and I've worked in TV for about almost 20 years. And my job is 90% writing. So I have to write all the time, and I love it. I've just always enjoyed it. I don't know. I just think it's almost like I always write in prose. It's hard for me not to. So.
Yeah. What did your son think about when he first held your book and maybe remembered that whole idea, that the day that you were telling him about the moose who loved to eat moose?
He loved it. He especially likes being the star of anything, of course, just like all kids. So, we've read it a couple of times, and he loves all the animals in the book, of course. The animals are all named after my pets, actually, in the book. So, and Tucker is our Jack Russell, who is very food obsessed. And so, of course, in the book, he's baking a pie. And so I think he just really appreciates all those funny little aspects in the book, and the fact that, he was sort of my inspiration.
Yeah. So what are some of the other, we meet the moose who likes moose in your book. What are some of the other animals and fun things that we'll find in the book?
So Casey the Knight. Casey was my first dog. He was a little Yorkshire Terrier. Marley is actually named after my mom's cat. So I borrowed my family's pets as well. Ollie was my sister's cat. So I just like, I don't know, using animals as my inspiration. I've been surrounded by animals my whole life. So, I knew I wanted to make that part of the book.
Mm-hmm. Did you always dream of becoming a children's author? I know that you've been writing in television, but before this moment with your son, had you envisioned yourself writing children's books?
I hadn't, actually. That just kind of came up out of nowhere. But once I got the idea for this book, I wrote 8 more. So I've only published this one so far, but mm-hmm. I have a ton of them now. They're just, they're just really fun to write. It's, it's short, but I feel like you can get so much meaning into such a short format.
Yeah. So what's the difference and the challenges for you between writing for television and writing children's books?
To be honest, there's not a huge difference. Because I'm a promotions producer, so I write short form.
Okay.
I write in 15 and 30-second increments. So I'm really used to actually having to distill something down to make it really simple. And of course, television already is really conversational. It's not like print, which is long form. So it's actually pretty easy for me to make it conversational and fun and silly. It really wasn't that different from the scripts that I've written.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've heard, and I've shared this on the podcast before. John Grisham had a podcast, and he said something like, I read 35 books this past weekend. And everybody's like amazed. Really? 35 books? Yeah. They were like, the cat liked to eat watermelon, and how can people write these books? I mean, it's so simple. They got paid to write 100 words. And he just kind of dismissed it. But writing concise stories, telling full stories with a limit of 500 or 600 words, or in your case in television, needing to tell a story in 30 seconds, that's pretty challenging.
Yes, it is, but I love the challenge. Mm-hmm. I love doing that. So it wasn't a huge stretch for me to write these books. And knowing that I was doing it to help my son, just, that gave me the inspiration to keep writing.
Mm-hmm. So when we're reading the books aloud, do we need to read it in like a TV announcer voice?
No, hopefully not. Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny. I always envision how people will read it to their kids. And I've had people reach out to me and tell me their kids love it, which is really just gold to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's better than anything else. I'd love to hear that kids are reading it and enjoying it and asking their parents to read it to them. And you can put on any voice you want for all the different characters. I like, the giving the moose kind of a deep voice. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. I just like, I want parents to be silly with it.
That's a neat thing. And I encourage parents. I'm a goofball in my entire life. So being silly for my kids was really, really easy. I think other parents have a hard time being as silly as they really want to be because of their job or whatever. But I think it's really helpful, and it's a great skill to be able to just be silly and not worry about what anybody thinks, except for that person that you love more than anything else in the world that's sitting on your lap.
Yes. Yeah. And my husband and I are both really silly with our kids, and they're really silly. So I guess it's, I don't know, hereditary or something.
That's wonderful. Well, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about Dear Mousse, Horseplay and Homophones.
Sure. So right now it's available as a paperback on Amazon. I would love to get it in a hardcover at some point, but right now it's just a paperback on Amazon. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at author Victoria Hudson.
Awesome. We've had a wonderful time speaking about onomatopoeia and homophones and how difficult English is with the author of Dear Mousse, Horseplay and Homophones, Victoria Hudson. Hey, Victoria, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
You may recall that not long ago, we were exhibiting at the Florida Homeschool Convention, the largest homeschool convention in the United States. We met some amazing authors down there. The very first author that we met was our next guest. My wife was walking around the exhibit hall, and she ran in to this author, and she came back and she said, "You have to interview this woman. She is amazing." I met her and I agreed with her. Right now, please welcome to the podcast, Shevonica M Howell. Shevonica, welcome to the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
And I understand that you've written a number of different books. Can you tell us the latest book?
Yes, sir. I've written 11 books. The latest book is actually a compilation book. It's me and 11 other authors. It's called 10 Toes Down. So it's a collaborative. Now, my last book that I wrote for myself was a math study guide called the You Teach It Study Guide.
Wonderful.
And the reason I wrote that book in particular is because I have a private school, Academy of Scholars, Inc., in Jacksonville, Florida, and I also do lesson plans for homeschool students.
You know, I really think you should get a little bit more energy because you're just kind of wasting your time.
Oh, my goodness. And, I hear that all the time because outside of having the private school, the 11 books, I'm an Army veteran. And I love being in the military. I earned 9 coins and 3 medals while in. And guess what? There's no stopping me. As long as God allow it, there is no stopping me, Jed.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, first off, thank you for your service. We really appreciate that. And you're continuing your service by educating kids. Where, I joked about your energy, but where does your energy come from?
Truly, it comes from the kids. Being that I was raised in the projects, I understand kids that experience disparity in education. So that, hits me here. And I want them to know, regardless of what your zip code is, where you come from, you can do and be whatever you want to be. So, having my private school, doing the lesson plans for homeschool students, having the 11 books, 5 degrees, Army veteran, they can do that. And they see me, they can touch me, they can feel me, they understand, wait a minute, she's here, she's real. And that's where my energy comes from. And guess what? Outside of that, Jed, this just happened to me not even 2 weeks ago. I am now spearheading a summer enrichment program with the Jennison Management Company in St. Augustine. And guess what? For 9 weeks, I'm doing that summer enrichment program for 55 well-deserved students that are out there at that property. And guess what? The sky's the limit. I've already done the lesson plans for the full 9 weeks. So, you know, like I said, as long as God allow it, I will continue to do what I know He sent me here to do.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to be educating kids when you were growing up? Was this something you said, "Nah, I want to do this"?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to say it was last year. My mom said, "Do you know you used to give all the Little Debbie snacks away if the kids would come and play school with you? You had to be the teacher, and they had to at least give you an hour of their time, and you would give them at least 2 of the Little Debbie snack cakes out the box." And I didn't know that. I didn't know I was giving away the snack cakes, but I did know that was something that I always wanted to do. I love kids so much. I love teaching so much.
You know, we've talked a lot here on the podcast about how important it is for kids to see themselves portrayed positively in the pages of books. And I agree with that, but I also think it's so vitally important for kids to see people who look like them succeeding and being in positions of leadership where they're really making a difference in the community.
Yes, sir. I agree. And you know what? I have my own motto. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely.
I am Shevonica M Howell from Jacksonville, Florida. I am determined to be more than what they say I will be, motivated enough to push for what I want to be, and destined to be what I was born to be, a testimony.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I'm imagining that there are kids out there who are growing up, like you said, growing up in the projects, who just feel discouraged, and they're hearing in the media, "You can't do this. The tables are stacked against you. There's inequality," and there is inequality, and there is inequity. But a lot of those kids are hearing those messages and going, "Well, then why should I try? Why should I try?" What would you say to those kids?
I would say to those kids to always bet on yourself. And what I mean by that is speak positivity to yourself. So from this point on, if there are kids out there or even adults out there that's going to school or trying to tackle classes, I want them to always think about this. You are a scholar. You will be successful. You are creative. You are humble. You are obligated to doing your very best. You are loyal, ambitious, and ready for any and all challenges or obstacles that may come your way. You are a scholar.
I love that. I love that. Hey, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about your books.
Yes, sir. Well, again, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. My Google Voice number is 904-274-1107. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Shevonica M Howell. You can also Google me, and all of my books will come up. And it's SHE, V as in Victor, ONICA M Howell, HOWELL.
We've had a wonderful, wonderful time speaking to our new friend. Shevonica, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jed. Thank you so much. And thanks to your beautiful wife for noticing me. She's just as beautiful.
Absolutely. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Allison McGregor. She'll be here to celebrate growing up Antoinette. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, we want to invite you to join us and connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Reading With Your Kids on TikTok, and at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We would also love it if you could go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and subscribe to our free newsletter. We'd also love it if you could click on the Parents Click Here button at the top of the page to check out our blog, check out our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and also discover how you can bring the Reading with Your Kids podcast to your community. You can find out that and more at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guests, Victoria Hudson and Shevonica M Howell. Also want to thank our sponsors, Abigail's Dragon by Patrick Matthews, a Reading with Your Kids certified great read, a fantastic middle grade novel your kids and you will love, and also a brand new picture book from our friend Stephen Joseph, Snoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, and lots of noodles. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bell Castro, Ashley Contreras, Mirabella Q, Rain Pan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.